Go ahead. It is 11:31, so we can go ahead and get started. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. My name is Paige Bradenkamp. I am the school library consultant at the Wyoming State Library, and we're here today to visit with Michelle Sullivan, director of the Wyoming Afterschool Alliance, and Kate Foster, also from the Wyoming Afterschool Alliance. We're going to talk about some of the partnership opportunities they have been successful at, and brainstorm some opportunities for our different communities, our library communities, to get together and reach out to kids, whether it be in the way of literacy or makerspace or anything that just helps bring our communities closer. So I will go ahead and introduce Michelle Sullivan. If you want to go ahead and talk to us about some of the things the Wyoming Afterschool Alliance has done in Wyoming, and we can go from there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paige, and thanks to everybody for being on the call today. As I was saying to one of my colleagues this morning, I am a huge fan of libraries, and I really believe that being able to really engage and partner with each of you in your communities will really help us to do our work even better, hopefully. So just quickly, I'm hoping what we can do with this time together is for us to be able to provide you an overview of the Afterschool Alliance, tell you a few things about opportunities that might be of interest to you in your work, in your communities, and then really just to have a broad discussion with you about ways that we can be of support to your work in both your library and your community, and things that you may be thinking about. So let me first just tell you a little bit about the Afterschool Alliance and about our organization. I think to start, we've been working really hard to recognize that we really believe that we have a shared responsibility to help support young people to their full potential. So that really, when we think about our underarching goal, that's really where we begin.
You know, Michelle, I'm sorry to interrupt,
sure.
But if everybody right now who's on the call could just mute, that way we don't have the names popping up, and we can for now, we can listen to Michelle and see what slides she has, and then we will open it up for discussion in a little bit.
Great. And to that end, too, please don't hesitate to go ahead and type into the chat at any time, and we'll try to continue to have that. I don't want to keep anyone from asking a question or making sure we're engaging everybody as well, but thanks for that, Paige, very, very much. So first of all, the Afterschool Alliance is nested within the Wyoming Community Foundation. We are what's called a priority fund of the Wyoming Community Foundation, and that creates lots of benefits. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the McMurray Library Fund that's there. I know many of your friends of the library funds are at the Community Foundation, and so we really value that partnership and that collaboration that we receive from them. We are funded in large part by the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation. That's one of our major funding sources. And what's really wonderful about that is it allows us to be both a statewide alliance and to also then be linked to a national alliance of other organizations like ourselves across the country. And so and I'll show you some of the resources that we receive from the Mott Foundation that we would love to be able to share and communicate back to each of you as you're interested. We have a whole variety of programs, and I'm not going to try to go into all of them, but I think I wanted to highlight just a couple today and say to you that one of the things I think we're really working to sort of shift in our work is to think about how we build communities of support in place for young people. And I would love, as we get into our conversation, to think about what you're doing in your communities and how we can be of support to you. We also have some funding that comes from the Department of Education, and so they continue to be a very strong partner with us. Ultimately, we're really focused on a couple of things. One is improving the quality of experiences in extended learning wherever they are. So sometimes that's happening in school, after school. It might be at YMCA's. It's obviously clearly in libraries, boys and girls clubs, and summertime. And so we're working really hard to recognize that every young person, no matter what their background, deserves increased quality and care as they develop over the course of their becoming who they're going to be. And it's funny, I always get a little bit emotional. I'm like, oh, because they're our future. So that's really what we're trying to do. Quality, another piece is really advocating for policies that help to support that, and also helping organizations in their sustainability over time. So that's really what we're about, and we're doing that in a whole variety of ways, both through programming, convening, providing resources to all of you, and just trying to connect people together to do their work more effectively. So I thought I would just provide you a couple of examples of things that we have that might be of interest to you. So first of all, I want to make sure everybody can see where you can find us. You can find us at the afterschool.alliance.org. And Kate, is my screen shared?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. So this is our website, just so you know where we are. So everything is kind of housed here. But the first thing I wanted to show you all is we have done a couple of, oops, that's the wrong one. We have partnered with the Nebraska After School Alliance. It's got an organization called Beyond the Bell to make available the designs for what's called the Think, Make, Create labs, or mobile maker labs. And we have one that we have actually unveiled that is in Rollins and is at the Rollins Boys and Girls Club. And we have also provided some funding to the Fremont County Library to build a second one. We do have we have the resources, I think, to match about half of the cost of one additional one, but I wanted to this has been something that we've been kind of working through with Nebraska, and is something that we could provide some support design. And the biggest challenge we're having right now a little bit is that they do need to be built, and they require a CNC router, but we think we've got that figured out. So we are very happy to if there's an interest in providing both the link to the designs and some funding to help achieve another one of these labs. We have not set this as a major priority as we're going forward, but eventually I think it would be great to be able to think about having a little, raising some money to do a few more of these. But we do currently have some funding specifically for one additional lab. And your wonderful Paige Bridenkamp is a trainer for, and some of you may have participated in the training for Leap into Science, which is also a curriculum that we have offered through the After School Alliance in partnership with the State Library. And for those of you, and maybe I'll ask Paige if in the chats if anybody has participated in the training and could talk a little bit about it, but we do have the opportunity to continue to do trainings. If anyone had an interest in maybe hosting a training in your community for our early care providers, we have some kits still available to share with providers, and could arrange in your community to try to do a training for care providers. So that is another opportunity that we have available.
Yes, and you can contact myself or Michelle, and we can definitely get you scheduled for a training. Those are really neat. They are really neat workshops.
And we've had some wonderful conversation about what people are doing in their communities to really engage families through a whole variety of various contexts. And so wonderful ideas and community beginning to be built through that. It's a link between both science and literacy. So really wonderful resource. Also, and this is again a resource from the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation. Because of their support, we have curricula available from National Geographic and also Jazz at Lincoln Center with some very specifically designed curricula for after school contexts. And so again, that's something that if there were an interest in that, we would love to be able to share that with you. And this is just, the page of, this is, I think, their education resource library, but would be delighted to continue to share that material with you as well. And then finally, I wanted to talk to you about a new effort that we are just sort of getting started, and I'm having to look at my little tabs here. Here it is. No, we have started a partnership, or we have a partnership with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. And as many of you probably know even better than myself, we in Wyoming, along with every place else in the country, are really struggling to make sure that we put literacy at the forefront, recognizing that when young people fall behind in third grade, it really has significant consequences for their future. And so we're just in the beginning phases of exploring how we can begin to build communities with literacy-rich environments, both within school, but also in the context of after school extended learning and summer learning. And we're just in the process of thinking about how to do some workshops in communities where we really bring together individuals who are working with young people out of school, but to provide them with the basic foundational knowledge of literacy so that as they're thinking and designing their programs, they can begin to think about how they build literacy-rich experiences into those activities. And we would love and really welcome the partnerships that we could form, I think, with the libraries across the state as we begin to think about what that looks like. In very preliminary terms, we've talked about actually engaging some national experts in literacy, where we would actually have them present via Zoom and then have workshop sites around the state with facilitators who would then lead activities that could sort of support what they were hearing through the national experts. And we're kind of in very preliminary discussions about that, but I would love feedback from each of you and how you could imagine that really working in your communities and with some of the goals you might have as libraries. The last thing I'll just mention before we really open it up to hear from all of you is we have worked really hard to develop some program quality practices that really help organizations in whatever way they're engaging with young people to really understand what quality looks like, and to also have some sort of metrics by which they can begin to assess how they're doing in that. And so these are resources that are available through our website. We also have I think a 3-part webinar series that really goes through those program quality practices so that that you or others who you work with can really begin to think about and examine how they continue to build quality. So that's just something we hope everyone feels comfortable in using. And and we are happy to begin to also connect you with others who are using that material to compare notes or whatever that looks like. So with that, I guess I would, it's kind of a big, broad overview, but I'd love to hear from each of you and hear a little bit about what's happening in your communities, what we can do to be of support to you, or challenges that you're having that we might be able to help or think about addressing with you. And with that, I might invite folks to ask questions, make comments, whatever would be useful to you.
That is a lot, Michelle. But that's all. It's great stuff. It's great stuff that's happening, and I really love the idea of the mobile maker spaces. Those are wow. And I do have a question about those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do you utilize them? I mean, who gets to use them? How do you know where they are? I mean, do they just go drive around and stop somewhere, or I mean, how does that work? Or how do you schedule them?
Yes, so Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about how Rollins is using theirs,
Sure.
just to kind of give an example?
Yeah, in Rollins, the Big Brothers Big Sisters houses the actual trailer, but they have a great working relationship with a number of other partners in their community, including the higher ed organization, and then they've been working with the school districts, so they've been taking it to just the Rollins school has utilized it, but they've also taken it over to Saratoga to provide opportunities in this, the very rural districts that have fewer opportunities. So that's something that they manage in-house. We provided sort of the seed money and the encouragement to collaborate, and then that community has really come together to find ways to use it. They've had some wonderful opportunities this summer to go to community events where they had I think the 4th of July parade was one example, and then like a Jubilee Days or something, where they brought the trailer into the parade and then they pulled over and had, engaged children while they were out, enjoying the summer days. So there's a lot of variety of ways that you could use it. I think in Fremont County, they're excited to be able to have it in Lander, Du Bois, Riverton, and sort of everywhere in between, where they can, find events and opportunities for STEM learning. And they're looking forward to kind of personalizing it and bringing in more of a literacy aspect. So it's certainly something that you can personalize for your own situation.
Excellent. That's cool. I do want to say to anybody, and when I said earlier about muting, if you want to speak, please unmute. You don't have to just use the chat. But thank you for that, Kate.
Yep.
And Bonnie and Carrie, I see your note from Cook County. We'll make sure that we get information to you. And one thought too, and I'm sort of, I can see Kate, so I'm sort of like having this like little. The mobile maker spaces have been these kind of challenges because they're, it's new for us, and so I'm laughing with what I'm about to say, but basically, I think if we were to think about a long-term partnership with libraries, maybe there would be an opportunity to think about setting a goal of, say, building 5 or 7, and then raising the money together or in collaboration to then get them built all together rather than having them be built one at a time. So I think if we did have sufficient interest, there's a long-term opportunity to partner to scale something that would be a little bit more, that would be more impactful statewide. So, and there is, I'm looking at the question, it says, is there an inventory for the maker trailer so we can find what's in it? I put together, I put in the chat the link to the mobile space, and yes, there is an inventory, and it does come also with some curriculum. I think Nebraska is actually using the National Geographic curriculum as a sort of as a way of creating synergy between the resources we receive from Mott. And in terms of, so basically you receive, and Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of a list of inventory that and consumables that would go into the trailer that you would then be able to easily replenish as you do various activities.
Yeah, there is a great guide that sort of is a wonderful jumping off point.
And the link that I sent you is actually the Google site from the Nebraska After School Network that shows, this link was to the gallery, but from there you should be able to see various designs and examples of what is happening, what others have done with it. Other questions or thoughts? I'm curious, I would love to hear perspectives on also kind of the campaign for grade level reading and whether that is of interest to anyone.
This is Jason. I'm wondering, what are kind of the specifics? Like, what would you like to see us do to get involved? The city offers an after-school program. I don't know if they partner or do anything, but I mean, what is kind of your vision of how libraries are going to get involved with what you have going on?
So, Jason, will you tell me where you're from?
Sweetwater County, sorry.
Oh,
County,
awesome.
Green River, and Rock Springs.
Okay, great. So I think what we're hoping to begin to do is to think about how we help to build the capacity of people who are connected directly to young people in after school. In Rock Springs, for instance, we have a really robust relationship with the district, who has a pretty wonderful after school program. Of course, many of the folks that they use are teachers, but what we're hearing is that as young people go into summertime, as an example, that's one of the places where they often lose ground over the course of the summer in literacy in particular. And so one thought is, are there ways that we can sort of begin to create a community of organizations, citizens in, say, Rock Springs, where we all set a common goal of, making sure there are opportunities in the summer for kids to be able to do kind of literacy related activities. It's more around kind of collaborating to all be working in the same direction with that common goal of creating, I say literacy rich environments, programming, making sure that people have the knowledge of what it looks like to actually help kids to learn and enjoy reading, that kind of thing. We're very much at the very beginning, so as you can hear me stuttering, it's in part because I think it could look different in every community depending upon what the needs were and what the resources were. But I'd love to be able to begin to connect people in a way, and whether that's just align with the library to make sure that what else is happening, or hosting a couple things for families during the summer, that kind of thing. It could look a lot of different ways.
No, that makes sense. There's a lot of that helps identify the need, because I know Green River offers a summer day camp through the rec center. They barely scratch the surface of literacy. That's just not a part they think of, and I'm not sure they really have any staff to help implement it. So I could see that's how we could get involved to redirect some focus there.
Great, and recognizing that, like one of the things that as we started thinking about this, you recognize that you have these oftentimes young people who are working a lot with kids in the summertime, and if we could begin to introduce ways that just a few little pieces of knowledge of ways and strategies that they could be introducing kind of fun activities, but that also help support maybe its background knowledge, or it's incorporating some sort of reading or activity that has to do with words and letters, that we know that could maybe help a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
This is Bonnie from Cook County. I go to the after-school studies program here at Sundance Elementary once a week, and I communicate with the teachers that do that. And they provide me with the theme that they're working on, so I take books that go with whatever projects they're working on. Sometimes I have taken projects in myself. That's a way to get your foot in the door for working with those kids in the summertime too.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Other ways actually from other folks in terms of how you're working in that kind of extended learning context, either in partnership or in your own context? Maybe while we're waiting too, I see a note from Cindy about the cost. I think the cost has been about $4,000. Is that right, Kate?
Yeah, I think that's about right. It's about, we have been able to provide half the funding for people through the generous gifts from AT&T Mountain Region. So I think it's each one, I think, is about 10 or 8 or 10. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with numbers, but we've been able to work with AT&T for the seed money. So we split the Carbon County half and half. That's the plan for a Fremont County Library system. And then for the third one that we would like to bring on board, it would be a half contribution from the Wyoming Afterschool Alliance. And then the community would be encouraged to fundraise for the second half. And I'm sorry, I'll have to look that up exactly.
Yeah, and one thing, by the way, related to that, Fremont actually they've raised their funds.
Mm-hmm.
They got a little bit stalled because one, they were having difficulty finding the equipment to actually adapt the design to what they wanted as it related to incorporating some literacy pieces, and then their director it transitioned out, so they are planning, I think, to have it or build it this spring. So they have not started programming with it yet.
Mm-hmm.
One thing also, and I obviously can't speak to this, but there is, through the McMurray Library Fund, it is possible, I think, to think about applying for some of the additional funding through that fund. And we could perhaps help to at least explore that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great.
I'm seeing from Jane, it would be nice if mobile makerspaces are planned that they could be slightly different to emphasize different themes. Mm-hmm. That's a great idea. That's wonderful. One more on electronics or sewing or textiles or wood shops. That's a wonderful idea. One, I guess I would maybe also just ask to, as you're thinking about your roles, what are some of your challenges or things that you could really that we could be helpful to you, or that you just are kind of puzzling with at this moment as you think about your work in community?
Well, our challenge here in Sweetwater County is people resources. You know, we can dream up the projects and envision what to do, but we just don't have a body that can go out to the schools and facilitate some of this or plan for it.
Uh-huh. So would you say, Jason, as you describe that, being kind of place-bound just because of the limited human resource you have as an organization? Or is it including even things you're doing at the library? No,
that's, there just aren't enough staff hours to put towards this.
Okay.
And we would have, so we'd have to make this a priority and then staff appropriately so that we could make some of these things happen. It's a lot of it is more successful when it's outreach. Trying to get a group to come to us at the library is a lot more work than going out to them, but we don't have a person to send out to them. Okay, interesting. So sometimes being able to do something outside the physical space of the library is successful, but then balancing that with the people resource is a bit challenging. Is that accurate? Oh yeah, trying to staff a front desk. I mean, we haven't automated everything. It would be great if we had more self-checkout machines, because that would free up staff hours to then go out into preschools and early learning centers and even the schools. Then we've got one person tasked with trying to visit 11 elementary schools. There's only so much that can be done.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. Other challenges or thoughts that people have? I'm seeing from Terry too, as an outreach effort, we are sending many of our summer reading presenters to youth organizations. That's fantastic. Terry, tell me where you're from. Let's see, I'm seeing if I can.
She's from Campbell County. She's the director of Campbell County Libraries.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm looking at your names and I know Paige has some better knowledge than I, so thank you for that.
And, before, maybe if you haven't spoken, just, introduce yourself, who you are and where you're from. That might help too, for everyone to get to know each other.
And Terry, I'm actually in Sheridan, so that's something we actually didn't get a chance to say, is that I am actually based in Sheridan. Kate is based in Lander, and then the Community Foundation is based in Laramie. So we've got sort of extended resources across. So Karen, I see that you say, I agree with Jason's comments on having a person to leave the library to do outreach is an issue here too in Washakie County. Okay, thanks. So I wonder too if maybe there's an opportunity as we, again, sort of thinking broadly as we begin to organize things, maybe there's an opportunity for us to even just partner with you, but then recognize that we may be looking for a partnership where we can extend your reach by maybe doing something collaboratively as we develop programs, something like that. That's something that we could definitely explore as well.
Well, and I don't know if you can. I mean, I don't know how the back end of all this stuff works, but what would be cool to us is, like for summer reading, for example, let's say there was some group agency that could give us a stipend, like here's $5,000 to bring on an intern that could spend the entire summer promoting literacy among all these summer day camp programs. I mean, that would be incredibly effective to us, and it would be great to hire a college kid that's maybe going into education or literacy or something, and providing that opportunity to them too. That would expand our reach for at least a period of time.
That's a wonderful, I'm seeing Terry say, that's a great idea. That's actually, I'm just like, oh, that's a great idea. And that actually, one thing, I just had a conversation this morning with, and I'm seeing 4-H being brought up here too. The University of Wyoming coordinator for student teachers who come to Sheridan for the spring semester, we talked about whether there were opportunities for us to begin to provide them, develop some capacity while they're actually student teaching, and then provide them a stipend to help facilitate or do some additional work with after school programs. And maybe what we do is we think about each of you as possible partners of where those interns or facilitators could sort of land or live as we begin to develop that. Does that sound of interest to people? I'm just looking here.
I mean, I would have an interest, and if we needed to make it bigger and more collaborative, it's the summer months. Travel isn't always an issue. I could see us having somebody in Southwest Wyoming that could help Uena County and Sweetwater County, and just, it's a great opportunity. It helps us, but it would also help this individual. That would be a really big resume building thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm seeing Jane. Do you want to talk a little bit about, Jane, would you mind actually talking about your comment? I see this Co-Innovation Center Makerspace, and I'd love to have you talk a little more about that if you wouldn't mind.
All right, let's see if we can get it working. Can you hear
Yay.
me?
Yes.
See me? Okay. So yeah, I'm sort of new to the University of Wyoming. I started in August, and I came from Colorado, formerly a STEM agent working with 4-H down in Pueblo County. And during my time there, I've been involved in the maker movement since before it was called Makers. So I've been a lead producer of a maker fair, and hosted many after school and summer programs and making in collaborations in majority with library districts. So when I started this position here in Laramie as the coordinator for the co-makerspace here in the co-library, immediately we were faced with the dilemma that no youth could use the space without their adults. And just being a former 4-H agent, I knew that this being a land-grant university, 4-H would be a really easy way to work around that. So pretty much within my first week here, I had coordinated a partnership with 4-H, and we launched an after-school program last semester, which was highly successful. We had over 30 youth participate in that program. And so this semester, we actually launched it in a more tight-knit component where we offer 6 weeks of programming 3 times a semester for youth. We targeted ages 10 to 13 because that is the high opt-out age range for STEM learning. And a 4-H agent participates every single week. So we partnered with the Albany County 4-H. So Mary Louise comes to 4-H Makerspace Club. We started our own club, and what we were able to do was not only develop a really thriving after-school program that has been full every session, but we've also been able to open up the makerspace to those kids who are members of the 4-H community to use the space without their parents as long as they pass our basic safety as well. And then a majority of my staff have been trained to become 4-H leaders so that everyone is protected.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it was a great workaround. And now we have youth coming in after school to earn badges on their own or just use the space. And then we host our after school program on Tuesdays in the space. And it runs from 3:30 to 6. And pending funding of a grant we have applied for, if we get funded, we'll be starting another programming probably on Thursdays. And that will be focused more on computational making. So it'll involve a single project for about 6 weeks. And it will be focused on programming skills. So they might work with Arduinos, for example, and make their own printed circuit boards. But some of the other outreach efforts that I'm doing, I've also in the process of putting forth another grant proposal through the university for some funds to fund an all-girls after-school program or possibly summer camp this summer, just because we still have a gender disparity in these programs, and we typically are seeing a third or less females participate in these programs. And so that's just been a hard fact to face. But a part of it is also that we've also formed a relationship with the lab school on campus. So we're providing outreach with them, and they have 3 classes this semester coming to the Makerspace every single week. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday mornings, we have lab school youth coming. And this semester, we have a girls in VR lab. So we have a group of girls that are learning how to make their own virtual reality.
That's great.
So,
thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I'm delighted to hear about it. I'm wondering also, I know Natrona has a makerspace that they just started. Other folks have other kind of activities or after school programming that's happening at the library specifically? Well, and related to that, please consider us, you know, a resource for materials or approaches, or even I would hope that we can begin to really think together about how, again, we support your work, but also how we promote the kinds of things you're doing. And honestly, both the 4-H component and then also really thinking about whether we could test this idea of helping to support some interns that are then able to be part of that outreach for your library is something that I would love to be able to pursue with folks who are interested. So I would ask that, Jason, maybe I'm assuming there was interest on your part, but maybe if there are others, you could let us know and we can continue to explore that opportunity. Why don't I'm going to go ahead and put my my email in the chat box, and also Kate Foster's. And if as you think about this conversation, if there are ways that we can be of support to you, be very appreciative to know more.
And you can always contact the State Library in Week if need be, and we can definitely connect you to the after school people as well, to Michelle and Kate.
And again, as it relates to the makerspace, I would just also let us know, and we can communicate offline as to how to be of support to you, and maybe think about what that looks like in your particular context. We know that each of you is kind of working in a different set of limitations, and so we want to be able to really support your success, whatever that looks like, and whatever your goals.
And I see Jason has mentioned that they're setting up a Children's Discovery Center in Rock Springs Library. That sounds amazing. A flight simulator? Wow. Wind table, mini grocery store? Wow, that sounds really fun. Hospital and vet center, weekly STEM programs. Wow, definitely. I would love to hear more about that too.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so that's gonna, I think the vision with that is that we'll have weekly programming that will support science and discovery and everything that goes with it. So this is why I tuned in honestly today, because I feel like there could be a real great opportunity going forward. And it's, yeah.
That's great. Well, and I think also we have a wonderful, I think, opportunity in Wyoming to kind of be a test case for some of the work or some of the development of programming that the Mott Foundation is supporting nationally. And so we really just want to make sure that we are providing that to you in whatever way is useful. And so just keep us posted for sure. Good. Any other questions or comments? I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but Paige, maybe I'll ask if you can also identify who we have so that we can also follow up with them, just to kind of add some robust information after the call, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Great. Good. Well, any last comments or questions for us? I will look forward to getting a chance to meet each of you, and as we're traveling around, and please consider us a resource as we go forward. And with those who have expressed an interest in specifics, we will be very happy to follow up. Thanks everybody.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. This was a good discussion.
Great. Thank you.